This video has been a long time coming, like 2 years in the making, and I'm not joking in the slightest about that. 2 years ago, on June 18th, 2019, I published a video on this YouTube channel talking about a guy whose name you might be a little bit familiar with, Brandt Clarke. I made that video talking about how, in my opinion, he was going to be the best defenseman drafted into the NHL since Rasmus Dahlin, and that was a perspective that 2 years ago I was very solidified about, which is why we made that video. Well, it's been 2 years. Brandt Clarke is now going to be drafted into the NHL at this upcoming 2021 draft, and we're making the very official Why I Want video to put into the marathon series over here and go over this prospect. Why I Wants are back, my friend, and they are really going to ramp up. I want to do Why I Wants every other day now because there are so many prospects I want to talk about in this draft. But before we get underway, thank you to those in the previous Why I Want who commented Mysterio. If you want a chance to be featured in the next Why I Want video that we do, please stick around to the end for that chance using the comment section keyword. So, today we're talking about Brandt Clarke, a 6'2", 190-pound right-handed defenseman eligible for this year's draft. The reason I was always super high on Brandt Clarke, especially back in like 2019, was because ever since Brandt Clarke was 16 years old, he had been doing such good things at the Greater Toronto Hockey League that really put him on the map as one of these top guys to be. He played his 16-year-old year, 15 turning 16-year-old, in the Greater Toronto Hockey League for the Don Mills Flyers U16 AAA club with the A on his sweater. This team was notable because you had Shane Wright on this team for a good half of the year, and you had Brennan Othman, who was also going to be a 2021 eligible prospect this year, on that team too. Brandt Clarke put up 113 points in 73 games played. At that point in time, he was the top scoring defenseman the Greater Toronto Hockey League had ever seen, and we made our video just going over some of the numbers, taking a look at who he had beaten out, and taking a look at the point per game rates. Take a look at this. This is all the way back from that video we made 2 years ago, but Brandt Clarke, among some super notable names who played in the Greater Toronto Minor Midget Hockey League back then, he absolutely shattered all of their point production. Quinn Hughes had a .59 points per game as a 15-year-old in this league. PK Subban a .64, Darnell Nurse a .76. You can see the numbers over here. Brandt Clarke was the best out of every one of these guys. And because you take a look at the comparables, okay, Brandt Clarke was outscoring Quinn Hughes, Bowen Byram was supposed to be the best defenseman in 2019, and Brandt Clarke wildly outscored Byram when Byram was playing AAA hockey in Alberta, which is not as good as minor midget hockey in Ontario. Then you had the 2020 draft, which had Jamie Drysdale, who was supposed to be the top defenseman. It wasn't. It was Jake Sanderson. He was taken before. But Drysdale was in a spot where he was severely outclassed by Brandt Clarke and his overall production. So that's kind of why I made this video 2 years ago saying that Brandt Clarke was going to be the best D-man since Dahlin. This was further exemplified by the fact that Brandt Clarke, in his 15 turning 16-year-old year, played such a highly offensively capable game that was so reminiscent of Quinn Hughes back in the day. Brandt Clarke just had this ability in the offensive zone to create space, open up lanes, keep the puck on his stick with pressure with his great pivots and his overall passing ability. There were scouting outlets back in 2019 who were saying that Brandt Clarke was a more well-rounded, right-handed version of Quinn Hughes. And so now we take a look at him 2 years later. What has he done? Okay. Brandt Clarke, ever since that crazy U16 year in the Greater Toronto Hockey League, put up 38 points in 57 games played in his rookie year with the Barrie Colts. Okay, that's pretty good. Same rate as Jamie Drysdale. He was still an impact OHL player. This year, though, he played in the Hockey Club Nove Zamky system in Slovakia, getting 15 points in 26 games played, which is a pro men's team in one of the top hockey leagues in Europe. So going over there as a 17 turning 18-year-old player, not a big deal. Pretty good, actually, and he got the production to boot. He also put himself up 7 points in 7 games played for Team Canada at the U18s. You can remember him. He was absolutely fantastic in that tournament. Take a look at the Canadian squad and who was putting up points there. We all kind of know it was the top dogs, Shane Wright, Bedard, McTavish. But Brandt Clarke was among this group of defensemen that was just going out there getting points, like Corson, Ceulemans, like Olen Zellweger as well. You take a look at the rankings, and Brandt Clarke is ranked 2nd on the consolidated ranking, 3rd by Elite Prospects, 5th by Future Considerations, 5th by the Neutral Zone, 8th by McKeen's, 7th by NHL Central Scouting for North American Skater. So that's a little low, actually, because if you combine the European list, 7th overall on the North American list would probably project to somewhere around the 10, 11, 12 mark. He's ranked 3rd by Sportsnet, 2nd by Recruits Scouting, 6th by Daubers, 2nd by Draft Prospects, 7th by Smart Hockey, and 2nd by the Puck Authority, not to mention 6th overall by TSN and Bob McKenzie. So he's got a lot of 2nd overall rankings. And it's really interesting to see how exactly this compares to some of the other defensemen that are in this draft as well. Owen Power is seen by many as a freight train to be who can just take the puck up and charge with it in the offensive zone and create offense that way. Brandt Clarke, when you're already in the offensive zone, is unmatched. He has a lot of things to work on away from the offensive zone. That is very noteworthy and something that you have to consider when you're thinking about drafting Clarke. But when it comes to pure upside, let's go over onto my NHL draft to take a look at some of the comments over here. Steve Corianis says he is a smart puck distributor and point producer who plays with a ton of enthusiasm. Clarke basically is neck and neck with any defenseman in this class in terms of upside. Sam Constantino says that he sees the game 2 steps ahead. He's terrific on the power play, but takes calculated risks to be part of the offense at even strength too. NHL.com labels Clarke as a mobile, puck-moving, right-handed shot who is considered an excellent passer and playmaker with great vision. This guy in the offensive zone just knows how to put up points. And when it comes to the upside, this is a guy who could have a legitimate top 2 pairing ceiling. The offensive flair, the offensive generation capabilities he has, his passing ability, it's all great, but the numbers speak for themselves. This was a guy who, as a 15-year-old, was better than Chychrun, Drysdale, PK Subban, and Quinn Hughes by a mile in terms of point production in their younger years. Obviously, their younger years is not a guarantee. There are a whole bunch of other younger year guys who didn't amount to anything, but Brandt Clarke is in that class where if you want to take a look at guys who became great, he has succeeded against all of them in terms of their overall age range progression. So, for Clarke, who had to spend a year in Slovakia because the OHL wasn't playing this season, he has been one of the top prospects in this draft. You could honestly argue you should take him 1st overall. The fact that he's a right-handed defenseman in itself is a very good thing. But, of course, you don't ever want to get into the, BPA, draft for need, whatever it is. Again, though, the argument presents itself when you talk about Beniers and Power, or Power and Clarke, or whoever it is. The BPA argument doesn't really apply in this year's draft because when it comes to who is considered the BPA, the best player available, Owen Power is not in that same guaranteed boat as Alexis Lafreniere or Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid or Jack Hughes was. All these guys could be interchanged because the pros and the cons contrast so heavily to the point that you can have these discussions. Is the uncertain projection of Owen Power and the way that he needs to be developed good enough of an indicator to sway you more towards a Brandt Clarke, whose own shortcomings come on the defensive transition side of the game, where he does need improvement, but where he probably will get better as the years go on? It ultimately depends on what kind of defenseman you want, because Brandt Clarke is that Quinn Hughes kind of rover offensive generation kind of style, different from an Owen Power who can just pick it up and go, different from a Simon Edvinsson who's really good away from the puck, but has some questionable decision-making when he has it, different from a Luke Hughes who can force offense a little bit more with his skating and with his stride. Brandt Clarke has an incredibly high ceiling for this draft. He could be a number 1 defenseman. It's just, it's not guaranteed like Aaron Ekblad was or like Rasmus Dahlin was, which is why it's not a guarantee Clarke goes 2nd or 3rd or 1st or anywhere even in the top 5. It really depends, and if you're a team like the Vancouver Canucks, for example, and a Brandt Clarke is available at 9th, I honestly wouldn't be too opposed to taking him. I mean, come on. I was the guy that was pointing out how good this guy was, how above and beyond Quinn Hughes he was when he was a teenager. Is it really surprising that I would want to take Brandt Clarke at 9? Nah. Talk to me in the comments what you thought about this video over here. Because Brandt Clarke played in Slovakia on a hockey team that's got green jerseys, Slovakia kind of sounds like Sokovia, and thinking about that, the green on the jersey makes me think of another Marvel character. Talk to me in the comments, Loki, for a chance to be featured in the next Why I Want video. By the way, Loki, episode 1? Oh, fantastic. Talk to me in the comments what you thought about Brandt Clarke. Would you want your team to draft this guy? Where are you drafting? If you do take Brandt Clarke, would you be happy with it? Talk to me in the comments if you enjoyed. This was Josh Rolls 99, and bye.